a world where alliances shift like sand, where the balance of power teeters on the edge of a knife, a world where the echoes of past world wars still linger, haunting us with the memory of the devastation they wrought. As we delve into the annals of history, we find that the first two world wars drastically altered the global landscape, causing untold suffering and irrevocable changes. Now, if we dare to consider the unthinkable, a third world war, we are faced with a chilling prospect. The potential implications are staggering. A conflict of such magnitude could bring widespread devastation, causing a ripple effect that would plunge societies into poverty and create a disaster on an unprecedented scale. The very fabric of our civilization could be torn apart. But what role would India, the world's largest democracy, play in such a chaotic scenario? In the event of a world war, India, with its vast population, diverse culture, and strategic location, would inevitably play a significant role. India, a country with a population exceeding 1 billion, is a force to be reckoned with on the global stage. Its military prowess is not to be underestimated either, with a standing army that ranks among the top 5 in the world. But it's not just the sheer numbers that make India a formidable player. It's the country's strategic alliances and diplomatic ties that would come into play in a hypothetical conflict. In the military realm, India has been strengthening its defense capabilities, investing in advanced weaponry, and enhancing its naval power to protect its extensive coastline. The country's space program is also worth mentioning, with its Mars mission making headlines and positioning India as a leading player in the space race. These investments in defense and space technology could provide a strategic advantage in a global conflict. But India's role wouldn't just be about military might. The country's alliances and diplomatic relationships would be just as crucial. India, being a founding member of the non-aligned movement, has traditionally maintained a policy of strategic autonomy, opting not to align itself explicitly with any major power bloc. This unique position could make India a key mediator and peacekeeper in a world conflict, leveraging its relationships with both Eastern and Western nations. Moreover, India's diverse culture, with its centuries-old philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, meaning the world is one family, emphasizes global unity and peace. This cultural ethos could influence India's approach to a global conflict, steering it towards diplomatic and peaceful resolutions rather than aggressive warfare. India's involvement would not only shape the course of the war, but also the future of global civilization. With its potential to influence both the military and diplomatic aspects of a world war, India would indeed be a significant player. Its decisions and actions could have far-reaching implications, not just for the immediate outcome of the war, but for the trajectory of global civilization in its aftermath. Imagine, if you will, the aftermath of a global conflict of this scale. It's not a pretty picture, is it? A world scarred by the ravages of a third world war would be a sight that none of us would wish to behold. Let's delve into the potential repercussions of such a catastrophic event. Firstly, the economy. Economies worldwide would be decimated. The financial burden of war is astronomical, and the global economy, already teetering on the edge due to a myriad of factors, would be pushed into an abyss. We'd be looking at the possibility of a worldwide depression, the likes of which we haven't seen since the early 20th century. In the social sphere, the impacts would be just as devastating. Displacement of people would reach unprecedented levels. Imagine having to leave your home, your city, your country, with no certainty of when or if you'd be able to return. The social fabric of many societies would be torn apart, leading to a rise in crime rates, social unrest, and a general breakdown of law and order. The environmental consequences would be equally grim. The use of modern weaponry would not only result in immediate destruction, but would also have long-term impacts on our environment. Think nuclear winter, acid rain, and a rise in global temperatures due to the release of vast amounts of greenhouse gases. The aftermath of this war would also bring about widespread poverty and famine. With economies in ruin and agriculture disrupted, feeding the world's population would become a Herculean task. This would lead to a surge in malnutrition and related diseases, further exacerbating the global health crisis. But let's not forget the psychological trauma. The scars of war run deep, and the mental health effects on survivors and their descendants can last for generations. But before we get carried away with these grim scenarios, remember, the chances of a World War III are incredibly slim. Let's hope that humanity has learned enough from its past to avoid such a disastrous future. Despite the bleak scenarios we've painted, it's important to remember that the likelihood of a third world war is minuscule. Let's delve into why this is the case. First and foremost, we live in an era of global institutions. The United Nations, the World Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund. These are all bodies that work tirelessly to maintain global order and peace. They provide platforms for dialogue, negotiation, and conflict resolution, helping to diffuse potential triggers for war. Furthermore, diplomacy, the art of navigating and managing relations between nations, has come a long way since the days of World War II. Today, it's not just about ambassadors in suits shaking hands. It's about digital diplomacy, people-to-people diplomacy, and even scientific diplomacy. It's about creating bonds and understanding that go beyond borders, transcending the traditional confines of politics. And then there's the nuclear deterrent. The thought of mutual assured destruction, where a full-scale use of nuclear weapons by two opposing sides would effectively result in the annihilation of both, is a sobering one. It's a grim insurance policy, but it's one that has so far kept the nuclear-armed nations from resorting to their deadliest weapons. But beyond these mechanisms, there's something even more powerful at play: the collective will of humanity. Around the world, people are working towards peace and unity. From grassroots activists to Nobel laureates, from ordinary citizens to heads of state, efforts are being made to foster understanding, tolerance, and compassion. And let's not forget the role of technology. With the rise of social media and digital connectivity, we're seeing a new kind of global consciousness, a shared sense of responsibility, a collective voice that stands up against aggression and injustice. It's this global solidarity, this collective will for peace, that is perhaps our strongest deterrent against a third world war. So, while we should be aware of the potential consequences of a global conflict, we should also remember that our collective effort towards peace is our best defense